Welcome to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to UPLEVEL. I'm Dr. Jenna, and today we're going to talk about why women struggle to build strength even when they're trying. This is something I see quite frequently, is women who are working out consistently, they're showing up, they're doing all the things, and yet they're not getting stronger. They're not seeing changes in their body, and they're starting to feel frustrated, right? Most of us put a timeline on when we should see changes, and when we don't see changes that we expect, it's frustrating. So it's not because they're not trying, it's because a few key things are off. So this is normal, and what I want to do in this episode is bring clarity. Okay, this is not meant as criticism in any way, but I do think it's important that we reframe the problem. It's not a motivation problem for many of you. It's a strategy plus physiology mismatch. All right, so let's break down what's actually going on. What are the real reasons that women struggle? Number one, mistake number one, if you will, is they're not training with enough stimulus. Your body needs a reason to change. You could be lifting too light. Could be stopping before true fatigue. You could be avoiding progressive overload. I used to see this in fitness classes that I would teach when I was in naturopathic medical school, and I was teaching fitness classes, and these women would just stay with like 3-pound weights or 5-pound weights, and they did not want to ever go heavier because they were afraid that they would get bulky. But if your body has no reason to adapt, it will not. All right. And the bottom line is, if the weight doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Transformation of any kind, our body, our mind is a challenge. All right. So the easy way is not in these cases the way that's going to get you the changes that you're looking for. That was, something I've told people before, that when I was teaching fitness classes, sometimes women would come up to me and they say, I'm doing, 4 or 5 classes a day. And I'm thinking, or maybe I'm saying sometimes, don't do that. Like, what happens is then they're just working out in their comfort zone. So they're putting in a lot of hours, but they're never getting out of their comfort zone. Okay. So mistake number one, not training with enough stimulus, challenging yourself. Number two, inconsistency. But maybe not what you think. I'm not just talking about skipping workouts. I'm referring to changing programs too often, not tracking progress, random workouts. Okay, so let's look at each of these. Changing programs too soon. We try, oh, it's not working, we quit, we try something else. We try, oh, it's not working, we quit, we try something else. In my interview process with taking on program members, I really like to get a sense of their commitment, because it has to, if you believe in what you're doing, you have to stick with it. And one of the most common mistakes is we just are changing up too soon. We're expecting things to happen in maybe an unreasonable amount of time. And then boom, we're on to the next thing. We're on to the next thing, which ties in with random workouts. All right. The third one that I said was random workouts. Random workouts create random results. This is why having a trainer is really important, or intelligent programming. And then tracking progress. So I know I skipped around, but not tracking your progress. How can you do progressive overload? How can you continue to challenge yourself if you're not actually tracking? I barely remember, what I did yesterday, much less the week before. The app that I use, I can go back and look at what weights I did for any particular exercise over several weeks, so I can make sure that I'm progressing. So strength is going to come from repeated exposure, and that stimulus keeps stimulating over time. And so inconsistency is not just skipping your workout. It's, are your workouts in and of themselves changing too often? Are you inconsistent with tracking your progress? So there's no progression. It's just all over the place. And so your workouts are random, or the programs you're doing are random because you're skipping around. You're doing this person's 1 week challenge and this person's 3 week challenge, and not really working with an overall strategy, both within your weeks, within your months, and I would say over the course of your year. I've talked in this podcast about different seasons and not just referring to, weather seasons, but your body's seasons, stress seasons. We can't just always be go, go, go in the highest intensity mode. Number 3 mistake is underfueling. Not eating enough overall, especially under eating earlier in the day. So many women were trying to do the intermittent fasting and we're skipping breakfast and we're not eating, and then we're overcompensating later in the day. All right. And then that fear of gaining weight. Those are the 3 main things that I see tied into underfueling. You're not eating enough overall, which ties in, briefly to the GLP-1 conversation. I know people that they want some of the benefits, but they're like, I don't want to not eat. I don't want to lose my appetite. The right dose, you shouldn't have full appetite suppression. That should not be the goal for anybody, because how do you build muscle if you can't get enough calories in, right? And so even if you're on a GLP-1 or entertaining them, it doesn't mean you have to eat less. I mean, for many people, it can lead, and that's one of the ways it's effective, is eating less, but that's not everybody's goal. And we certainly don't want to suppress your appetite. So we want to make sure you're eating enough overall, because underfueling will lead to both potentially a slowed down metabolism, but also not having the strength to actually push yourself and challenge yourself in your workouts, or you're underfueling in the earlier part of the day and you're overcompensating later at the end of the day when there's the stress eating response, the emotional eating, and the just plain hunger because you haven't eaten enough during the day. I have definitely noticed this with myself. I have to be really diligent to carve out time to make sure I'm eating, and it really sets me up for a better nighttime experience, as well as the next morning, actually. So, you can't, and when we're looking at building muscle, you can't ask your body to build muscle if it doesn't feel safe or supported. That's another piece that we've talked about. And underfueling can be seen as a threat. And so I talk about that in those metabolism episodes. And in general, a deficit is not the place to build muscle. All right. In general, when we're looking to build muscle, you're not in a calorie deficit at the same time. Okay. So calorie deficit to shed fat, maintenance calories, or sometimes even more if you're building muscle. Now, that's a broad statement. When you're working with a particular coach, there is some individualization. There is a way to be in a deficit and at least maintain your muscle, sometimes build. But if your body doesn't feel safe, it's going to sabotage and change the whole experience. Okay. And so I've seen this myself personally, and I've shared that in past episodes, that what triggered some of this food noise for me was actually going into a deficit. My body was just not having it. And what I see clinically with people as well. Okay. Mistake number 4. I don't really like the word mistake. But that's why I say this isn't about blame. This isn't about beating yourself up. This is just about information. All failure is information. All quote unquote mistakes are just opportunities to learn. But right now I can't think of a better word, a replacement word. So I'm going to call it a mistake, but not in a blame way, in a clarity way. Number 4, too much cardio and or not enough recovery. Now I want to be clear. I'm not anti-cardio. I just did some video shoots on this earlier, but excess cardio, constant output without a rebuild phase can be an issue. You can get nervous system fatigue from the output from cardio. And so if you're doing so much cardio or even just HIIT, then those folks that I've seen, and this may or may not be you, they're often not lifting heavy enough or long enough to create true strength stimulus. I'm not trying to dissuade. If you love cardio, you love running, that's fine, right? But we have to have the strength training in there. And so looking at the effect on the nervous system and making sure, are you lifting heavy enough or long enough to create true stimulus? And then you add that to underfueling, people that are doing all this cardio, because you need more carbs when you're doing cardio. I mean, we need some carbs with strength training, but we definitely need more when we're doing cardio or HIIT. And some of you might notice that. I notice that on the days that I do cardio or do HIIT or do my lists. I want more carbs. I crave more carbs. My body wants it. And so if you are doing a lot of cardio without enough food, this could stall your progress. This could lead to fatigue. This could lead to cravings later in the week. I've seen this in myself, where maybe I do something earlier in the week, and like sometimes when I have evening seminars or classes or webinars, I don't eat quite as much on those days, and then I overcompensate later in the week. And if I've added cardio into the mix, then I'm like really making up for lost time. So it isn't bad. Cardio is not bad. But if it's the main thing you're doing, it's probably the reason, or a big part of the reason, you're not getting results. Okay. I said that wrong. Let me rephrase that, because I don't even know what I just said. I don't think I said that the way I wanted to say that. Y'all know, well, you don't know, but sometimes I like wake up in the middle. Now I'm making up stuff. That is not true. I don't wake in the middle of the night about this, but sometimes when I finish podcasts later that day or the next day, or I suppose maybe occasionally in the middle of the night, although usually I don't wake too much in the middle of the night anymore. I'll think, oh, did I say that the right way? Oh, I forgot to include this piece. Oh, that's not exactly what I meant. So any of you have that monkey brain? We want to turn that off too. That's that perfectionism. That's that overthinking. All right. So let me rephrase what I'm trying to say. It isn't bad. Cardio isn't bad. And if it's the main thing you're doing, it's not the reason you're not getting results, but it's part of the reason. It's part of. I'm not going to tell someone to stop doing something they love. But, I was just saying to somebody earlier, if we're not getting the results, we have to be willing to do something different. Doing the same thing over and over, or doing the same thing with just more effort and more grind and more, that's not the answer. And that's what I see is people just are like, they're moving their body more and more within the same way, eating less and less and not getting results. So that's the definition of insanity, right? We do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So just look at what you're doing, and that might be a piece. And the other piece is recovery. Strength is built during recovery, right? So you work out, but you got to let those muscles rest. That's when strength is built. And just please remember, more isn't better. Better is better. More isn't better. Being strategic, doing things right. They say work smarter, not harder. Better is better. All right. And it's not about whether the cardio is long or short. You could get this from too much HIIT. It is about whether it's supporting or competing with your ability to build strength. Is what you're doing supporting your ability to build strength because your body's strong, your nervous system is safe, and it's a wonderful add-on? Or is it competing? And for many of you, it comes to a place where it's competing. And so the hierarchy actually matters. Strength training is the foundation. It is non-negotiable, especially if you're midlife or later. And for all my younger folks out there, now is the time. Somebody asked me recently, what's the one thing that women wait too long to do? What's the one thing that could change the trajectory of my longevity, of living the next 20 years in the best place that I could be? It's strength training early. It's never too late, but start doing it as soon as you hear this. Just kidding, but you know what I mean. So strength training is the foundation. Number 2, recovery plus fueling is required. You've got to fuel, you've got to recover. It's not go, 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 go all the time. And number 3, cardio of any type. I love me some sit. I love me some HIIT. I don't do long distance running anymore, but I used to love it. But whatever cardio, and I used to teach spin. I don't do spin anymore, but whatever cardio you love, it's supportive if it's used correctly and has benefits in and of itself. But muscle is our longevity organ, and it's important for way too many things for us to just keep doing just cardio. And we're not going to see the same kind of changes. And look, there's different types. There's LISS, which is that longer steady state, which is great for recovery. as like a baseline. But if it's replacing lifting or becomes excessive, that's when it gets out of balance. Hit and sit, love them. They're efficient. They're performance enhancing. They're really important for our bones and getting that impact in different directions. But if it's layered on top of stress and poor recovery, it can become a problem. All right. So it's not that cardio is bad, but if your goal is to build strength, it can't be the main event, or it shouldn't be. All right. And so whether it's long or short, if it's taking away from your ability to lift, your ability to recover, or you're fueling properly, it is probably working against you. Now, mistake number 5, and this ties into jumping from program to program, expecting fast results. And I just want to say a little quick thing as, as a physician as well. I think this is an issue across the board in most areas of our life, and as someone that does mindset training for people, you're building a business, you're changing your body, you're working on a chronic health condition. I see results fast, but when we expect fast results, when we have unrealistic timelines, it often leads to quitting too early and not recognizing subtle progress. And if you've had a chronic health disease condition, for example, or let's say you've had a certain body for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, all right, if you neglected your car for 10, 20, 30 years, or did maybe not the ideal things for your car and you bring it in and it needs a total overhaul, you're not going to expect to get your car back in a few hours. You're going to know they're going to have it for a little bit. So what's amazing about the human body is chronic health conditions can turn around quite quickly. But if you've had something for years, is it realistic to expect it to be totally gone in a few months? If you've been struggling with a certain aspect with your body, it's not going to completely transform. Muscle takes time to build. So expecting fast results, it's interesting. In mindset, I always tell people, we want to expect positive. We want to expect change, but let's not get attached to the timeline. Okay, so when we expect fast results, we likely have unrealistic timelines, quit too early, don't recognize the subtle progress. Strength is a long game. Strength is a long game. It takes time. You're not going to, and for those of you worried about, being bulky, you're not going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger. But what I will say about strength is it does compound. It compounds. All right. And, when people would take time off of working out, or myself, and you come back into it, we often feel like, oh my gosh, I lost it so quickly. And it's like, yeah, we lose it quickly, but we get it back pretty quickly, especially the longer you've done it and the more foundation you have, because it does compound. I can step away for a little bit now and come back, and I haven't lost a lot of muscle and a lot of strength because I've been doing this for a very long time. All right. So it's pretty powerful long-term to have that muscle, and it's really non-negotiable. We don't want to enter those later years in any kind of frail, sarcopenic state. All right. And then the kind of hidden layer that I talked about a little bit earlier, and I've talked about in the past, your body has to feel safe to build. All right. So these other pieces still matter: stress, sleep, nervous system, metabolic stability. I'm not going to go into all the physiology. I've done this in past episodes, but at the end of the day, your body has to feel supported if it's going to build. So if you're under recovered, if you're under fueled, if you are constantly stressed, it's not going to prioritize muscle. It's got other things to deal with. All right. So let's talk about the solution and what actually works. All right. If you want to actually build strength, here's what matters. Number 1, lift heavier than you think. Now, I'm not saying go from 0 to go pick it up, 50-pound weights for bicep curls progressively. Okay. Progressively. Let's add that progressive overload. Lift heavier. And look, you can try. I was doing RDLs the other day, and sometimes I'll get a little low back pain. And so I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my form? Am I engaging my core? But I tried to increase my weight, and I made it 2 or 3 reps in, and it didn't feel right on my body. So then I dropped down about 5 pounds. And so it's not about pushing through discomfort, but it is about challenging ourselves. And what I often find when I do that is then the following week, when I go to progress, I can handle that next progression. So lift heavier than you think. Number 2, follow a structured program. Not random. Follow something structured that works for you, right? That's meant for you. There's structures out there that just don't resonate for me at all as a menopausal woman. Number 3, eat enough, especially protein, and just total calorie wise. make sure you're eating enough and listen to your body. Have you ever had that sort of natural, you eat more one day and then the next day it's like, okay, I don't need quite as much. Or you eat a little lighter one day and then you feel that you're making up for it the next day. So eat enough if you have to track to know that you are. But once you get really in tune with your body, you'll be able to know what that baseline is for you. But many of us have to look and say, get a sense, track for a little bit so we know how to hit those protein goals and what it looks like on our plate to get the protein and the calories that our body needs. Number 4, recover intentionally. Now, recovery can be active. It can be a gentle walk on recovery days. It could be a gentle restorative yoga routine and get that mobility and that flexibility. And it can be a day of complete rest where you're just relaxing. But be intentional about your recovery. Number 5, stay consistent for months, not weeks. And build that habit so then it becomes part of who you are. And then when the seasons come and go, I think I mentioned that I, for the last couple years, typically work out 5 to 6 days a week. And if I didn't work out 5 to 6 days a week, so that would be my strength alternating with some list cardio and HIIT or sit, sometimes yoga, Pilates. I was like, I got to move my body every day. But something started going on towards the latter part of the year with other projects that I'm working on and things that I'm building and family things where my body actually isn't quite wanting that much. And so now I'm doing 3 to 4 days a week. And so when you build consistency, you stick with it long term. So when I say stick with it, stay consistent for weeks, not months, I mean with the program you're doing. I said that backwards? Sheesh. Stay consistent for months, not weeks, with whatever program you're doing. And it should be well structured. So find a well structured and then stick with it and watch those gains start. But this is not about doing something and then being done. Oh, well, I did. I stuck with it for 4 months and now I'm done. We're never done. Good news, bad news. We're not done. But then maybe you do a slightly different program and you progress within that. So this is, again, where working with a professional is really, really helpful. And I'm going to bring in a strength coach on our next episode to walk through exactly how to apply this. So you can take what we've talked about today and actually implement it. But here's some questions to ask yourself if you're listening, which, hopefully you are. Am I lifting to fatigue? Are you actually lifting to fatigue? And again, different programs are going to have different, what we call reps in reserve left, where if you're doing 3 sets of something or 4 sets, you've got 3 reps left and then 2 reps left and then 1. And so working in a structure so that you can determine and be strategic about actually lifting to fatigue. So ask yourself, am I following a plan or am I just throwing spaghetti at the wall? Am I eating enough to support this? And if you're thinking of quitting or you're getting discouraged or you haven't seen results, are there some small wins in there? And ask yourself, have I been consistent for at least 8 to 12 weeks? At least most of the programs I do are 12 weeks long. I'm trying to think if there have been any that have been 8 weeks. So be consistent. All right. And like I said, next time I'm going to bring a strength coach in to walk you through how to do this, how to implement it, no matter what your age, no matter where you are with your fitness level. And I want to close with the thought that the goal isn't just to work out. It's to become part of your identity. It's a big shift when we can shift our identity. It's about becoming someone who trains in a way that actually changes your body. We can do the things, but if we're not getting results, it doesn't feel as good as when we can actually see the progression and actually see the changes and start to identify with the person that's strong, that's fit, that's consistent, that's regular. So yeah, that's it for today. And I will see you next time when we've got Coach Monica. Thanks again so much, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it. And have a beautiful week. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.